Have you ever stumbled across something that looked like a blessing, only to discover it was really a test of your heart?
Oh my God.
What would you do if you were a struggling single dad, barely making ends meet, and suddenly found yourself standing inside a giant desert hangar filled with 9 supercars and 3 helicopters? Most people would see a fortune. But one man saw something else, a chance to do the right thing. And that decision changed more lives than he could have imagined. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Here on Soul Light Stories, we share heartfelt stories that remind us how kindness, courage, and compassion can transform ordinary lives. Now, let's dive into today's inspiring story. Michael Carter was a single father living in a small town in Arizona. Ever since his wife passed away 5 years earlier, he had worked tirelessly to raise his 10-year-old daughter, Emma. Life was not easy. Michael worked long shifts repairing air conditioning systems in the scorching desert heat. Every dollar mattered. Some months he had to choose between fixing his old pickup truck or replacing worn-out clothes for Emma. Yet despite the struggles, Michael always carried himself with kindness. He helped elderly neighbors carry groceries. He repaired broken appliances for families who couldn't afford service calls. Whenever someone needed help, Michael somehow found time. Emma often asked him why he gave so much when they had so little. Michael would smile and say, "Kindness is the one thing that grows when you give it away." One afternoon, Michael heard about an abandoned property being auctioned outside town. It was an old aircraft hangar sitting on several acres of desert land. Most buyers weren't interested. The building was dusty, neglected, and rumored to be full of junk. Michael had been saving money for years hoping to start a small repair business. The property seemed like a risk, but the price was surprisingly low. After thinking carefully, he placed a bid. To his shock, he won. The following weekend, Michael and Emma drove out to inspect their new property. The massive hangar doors groaned as they slowly opened. At first, everything looked dark. Then sunlight streamed inside. Michael froze. Emma gasped. Parked in neat rows were 9 luxury supercars covered with dust. Behind them sat 3 helicopters. For a moment neither of them spoke. Michael thought he must be dreaming. The vehicles looked like they had been untouched for years. Emma stared wide-eyed. "Dad, are we rich?" Michael laughed nervously. "I don't think it's that simple." Over the next few days, word spread quickly throughout town. Everyone had advice. Some people told Michael to sell everything immediately. Others suggested keeping the discovery secret. A few even encouraged him to claim ownership before anyone else could. But Michael felt uneasy. Something didn't seem right. Vehicles worth millions of dollars don't simply disappear. Someone, somewhere, had once cared about them. Instead of rushing to profit, Michael contacted local authorities and began searching public records. Weeks passed. No clear owner could be found. The hangar had changed hands several times through complicated legal disputes and unpaid debts. Meanwhile, Michael continued working his regular job while waiting for answers. One day, he received a call from a large corporation headquartered in California. The company requested permission to inspect one of the cars. Curious, Michael agreed. A few days later, a black SUV arrived at the hangar. Out stepped a woman named Sarah Bennett, the CEO of a successful technology company. She walked slowly through the hangar, examining each vehicle carefully. Then she stopped suddenly in front of a silver sports car. Her face changed. Michael noticed tears forming in her eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Sarah nodded but couldn't speak for several seconds. Finally, she touched the dusty hood. "I know this car." Michael looked surprised. Sarah took a deep breath. 20 years ago, this belonged to my father." She explained that her father had been an aviation entrepreneur who owned a private collection of cars and aircraft. After his unexpected death, legal battles and financial complications scattered many of his assets. Several items had vanished completely. Nobody knew where they ended up. Sarah had spent years searching. And now, standing in this forgotten desert hangar, she had found one of the missing pieces of her family's history. Michael listened quietly. He could hear the emotion in her voice. This wasn't about money. It was about memories. Sarah shared stories about riding in that very car with her father when she was a little girl. She remembered weekend trips, ice cream stops, and long conversations. The vehicle represented a connection she thought she had lost forever. When she finished speaking, Michael smiled. "I think your father would be happy you found it." Sarah thanked him and asked what compensation he wanted. After all, Michael had legally purchased the property. The vehicles might now belong to him. Michael glanced at Emma. Then he looked back at Sarah. "I don't want to profit from someone's pain," he said. "If these vehicles can be connected to your family legally, I'll help return them." Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Most people would have demanded millions. Michael asked for nothing. Over the next several months, lawyers and investigators worked through ownership records. Eventually, several vehicles and helicopters were successfully linked to Sarah's father's estate. The legal process confirmed her family's claim. When everything was finalized, Sarah invited Michael and Emma to visit her company headquarters. They expected a simple thank you. Instead, they received a life-changing surprise. During a company event, Sarah shared Michael's story with hundreds of employees. She spoke about integrity. About doing the right thing when nobody is watching. About choosing kindness over greed. The audience gave Michael a standing ovation. Then Sarah announced something unexpected. Her company would fund Michael's dream business. They would provide equipment, training, and financial support to help him build the repair company he had always wanted. Michael was speechless. Emma burst into tears. The room erupted in applause. But Sarah wasn't finished. She also established a community assistance program in Michael's town, inspired by his example of helping neighbors. The program provided free repairs and emergency assistance for struggling families. What began with a forgotten hangar soon transformed an entire community. Years later, Michael's business thrived. He employed local workers and continued helping families whenever he could. Emma grew up watching her father's example. She learned that true wealth isn't measured by what you keep. It's measured by what you give. People often asked Michael whether he regretted not keeping the supercars. He would simply smile. Then he'd look around at his employees, his thriving business, and the community that had grown stronger through acts of kindness. "No," he would say. "Not for a second." Because the greatest reward wasn't found in those cars or helicopters. It was found in the lives touched by one simple decision. A decision to put honesty before profit. Compassion before opportunity. Kindness before self-interest. And that's the beautiful truth about kindness. You never know how far a single good deed will travel. A small act of integrity can create waves that reach people you've never met in places you'll never see. So today, remember Michael's story. Choose kindness when it's difficult. Choose honesty when nobody is looking. Choose generosity even when you have little to give. Because sometimes the most valuable thing you discover isn't hidden inside a hangar full of treasures. It's hidden inside your own heart. And when you share that kindness with the world, you may inspire more change than you ever imagined. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep spreading kindness wherever you go. The world needs it more than ever. 1 year after the incredible discovery in the desert hangar, life had changed dramatically for Michael Carter and his daughter Emma. The small repair company Michael once dreamed about had become one of the most trusted businesses in Arizona. Thanks to the opportunity Sarah Bennett had given him, he now employed more than 20 people, many of whom had struggled to find work before. But despite his success, Michael remained the same humble man. Every Friday afternoon, he still set aside time to help families who couldn't afford repairs. He never forgot the difficult years when every dollar mattered. One warm summer evening, Michael was closing the shop when an elderly man arrived in a faded pickup truck. The truck looked ready to fall apart. The man stepped out slowly and introduced himself as Robert. "My air conditioner stopped working," he explained. "I don't have much money, but I was hoping you could take a look." Michael smiled. "Let's see what we can do." After inspecting the truck, Michael realized the repair would cost several $100s. When Robert heard the estimate, his shoulders dropped. "I was afraid of that," he said quietly. Michael noticed the disappointment in his eyes. Without hesitation, he told his mechanics to fix everything at no charge. Robert looked stunned. "You don't have to do that." Michael smiled. "Years ago, people helped me when I needed it most. Consider this my way of paying it forward." Tears filled the old man's eyes. He thanked Michael repeatedly before driving away. Michael thought little of the encounter. To him, it was simply another opportunity to help someone. A few weeks later, an unexpected letter arrived at the office. The envelope contained no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. Michael unfolded the paper and began reading. His expression changed immediately. The letter was from Robert. But it contained a shocking revelation. Robert explained that he had once worked as a caretaker at the same desert hangar Michael had purchased years earlier. Before the property became abandoned, Robert had spent decades maintaining aircraft and vehicles there. As he grew older, ownership disputes forced him to leave. For years, he carried a secret. Hidden somewhere inside the hangar was a locked storage room that nobody knew existed. Robert had never revealed its location because he feared greedy people would exploit whatever remained inside. But after witnessing Michael's kindness, he finally trusted someone enough to share the truth. At the bottom of the letter was a rough map. Michael stared at it in disbelief. That weekend, he and Emma returned to the hangar. The building looked exactly as it had on the day they first opened its doors. Following the map carefully, they reached a section of the hangar hidden behind old metal shelving. After moving several heavy panels, they discovered something astonishing. A concealed steel door. Emma's eyes widened. "Dad, this is real." Michael's heart pounded. The lock had rusted badly over the years. After several attempts, it finally opened. The room beyond was much smaller than expected. Inside were dusty boxes, old photographs, aviation journals, and several filing cabinets. At first glance, there appeared to be nothing valuable. But as Michael examined the documents, he realized they contained decades of personal records belonging to Sarah Bennett's father. There were journals describing charitable projects, scholarship programs, and community initiatives he had planned before his sudden death. One journal entry caught Michael's attention. It described a dream. Sarah's father had wanted to create a foundation that would help single parents start small businesses. Unfortunately, he passed away before the project could begin. Michael sat quietly reading page after page. The more he learned, the more emotional he became. Many of the values described in the journals mirrored the lessons he had always tried to teach Emma. Kindness. Integrity. Service. Compassion. The next day, Michael contacted Sarah. When she arrived and saw the hidden room, she was overwhelmed. Together they spent hours reviewing the documents. At one point, Sarah found a letter her father had written shortly before his death. She held it carefully as tears rolled down her cheeks. For years, she had searched for pieces of her father's legacy. Now she had found something far more valuable than cars or helicopters. She had found his heart. Several months later, Sarah and Michael announced a new project. Using the plans discovered in the journals, they launched a foundation dedicated to helping single parents achieve financial independence. The program offered training, mentorship, equipment, and startup funding. Hundreds of families applied. Many had faced challenges similar to Michael's own struggles years earlier. The foundation quickly began changing lives. Single mothers opened bakeries. Single fathers launched landscaping companies. Parents who once felt trapped finally had opportunities to build brighter futures for their children. During the foundation's first anniversary celebration, Sarah stood before a crowd of families whose lives had been transformed. She spoke about her father's dream. Then she spoke about Michael. If Michael had chosen greed instead of kindness, she said, none of this would exist today. The audience applauded. Michael looked around the room. He saw parents smiling, children laughing, families filled with hope. And in that moment, he realized something powerful. The greatest treasures had never been hidden inside the hangar. Not the supercars. Not the helicopters. Not even the secret room. The real treasure was the chain of kindness that began with one honest decision and continued touching countless lives. As they drove home that night, Emma looked out the window thoughtfully. Dad? Yes? Do you think kindness always comes back to you? Michael smiled. Not always in the way you expect. Emma nodded. But it comes back somehow. Michael glanced at his daughter and smiled. Every single time. And as the desert sunset painted the sky with gold and orange light, father and daughter continued their journey together, knowing that the smallest act of kindness can sometimes create the biggest miracles of all. The end, or perhaps just the beginning of another story.